Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Dear viewers, from today we begin the seventh topic in this saga of revisiting the collection and transmission history of the Qur'an. And the topic that we begin today relates to a very important fact, and that is that Abdullah ibn Masud, a very prominent companion of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, it is reported in certain narratives that he did not regard the Muawwidhatayn, or the last two surahs of the Qur'an, to be part of the Qur'an, and is also reported that he would strike them off. Kana yahukkuhuma. So in this particular lecture series, or this particular subtopic, I will inshallah review these narratives which regard Abdullah ibn Masud to be not considering these two surahs to be part of the Qur'an. I shall also cite criticisms which have already been offered on these narratives by our earlier authorities, and also present my viewpoint on them. So let me begin with a few representative texts in this regard, and then we shall see how they have been critically viewed by our previous authorities, and then later on I shall present my own input as well. So the first of these narratives is recorded in the Musnad of Ahmad ibn Hanbal, and the words are, it is reported by Abdullah ibn Yazid, who was a student of Abdullah ibn Masud. So the words are, An Abdurrahman ibn Yazid قال كان عبد الله يحك المعوذتين من مساحفه ويقول إنهما ليستا من كتاب الله تبارك وتعالى. So Abdurrahman ibn Yazid said, Abdullah ibn Masud would erase the Muawwidhatayn from his Masahif and would say, they are not part of the book of God, the Blessed and the Mighty. A second similar narrative is reported by Zir ibn Hubaysh, and the words are, عن زر بن حبيش قال قلت لأبي بن كعب إن ابن مسعود كان لا يكتب المعوذتين في مصحفه فقال أشهد أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم أخبرني أن جبريل قال له قل أعوذ برب الفلق فقلتها قال قل أعوذ برب الناس فقلتها فنحن نقول ما قال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم. And this narrative has also been recorded by Ahmad ibn Hanbal in his Musnad. Translation is, Zir ibn Hubaysh said, I told Ubay that Ibn Masud would not write the Muawwidhatayn in his Mushaf. Ubay said, I bear witness that the Prophet told me that Gabriel said to him, Kul a'uzu bi rabbil falaq. The Prophet said, I said these words. Gabriel then said, Kul a'uzu bi rabbin nas. The Prophet said, I read these words. Thus we read what the Prophet read. So it is on the basis of these narratives, and as we shall see some of the other variants as well, that it is believed, or it is alleged, that Abdullah ibn Masud did not regard the last two surahs, which are called the Muawwidhatayn, to be part of the Qur'an. Now, in this regard, there are two very prominent authorities who have critically analyzed these narratives and shown to the best of their ability that they do not carry any significance and they are not worthy of being considered. The first prominent authority in this regard is Abu Bakr ibn Tayyib al-Baqillani, who in his Al-Intisar has critically reviewed these narratives and has made his conclusion, has come to the conclusion that these narratives are not trustworthy. And the first critique that he offers is that it is quite against human practice and behavior and experience that if Abdullah ibn Masud had not regarded the Muawwidhatayn to be part of the Qur'an, that a debate would have ensued between him and the rest of the companions, because the rest of the companions, it is known, all regard these two surahs to be part of the Qur'an. So why is it that no such debate is reported in history? He says that such is the gravity of the matter that if a person does not regard, and a prominent companion of the Prophet does not regard two surahs of the Qur'an to be part of the Qur'an, then this would have been a cause of great alarm amongst the rest of the companions. They would have come to him, they would have asked him what the reason was that he's not regarding these surahs to be part of the Qur'an. They would have even gone on to censure him and rebuke him and to scold him that what's the reason that he's doing this. They would have even gone on to call him an apostate or an unbeliever because the gravity of the matter is such. So he says that all these debates should have been reported in history, and this is all the more reason because debates which are of lesser import have been reported in history. And thus, for example, he gives the instance in which Abdullah ibn Masud himself, in the times of Caliph Usman anhu, refused to hand over his mushaf to the authorities. And we know that Usman had launched a campaign to gather all the Masahif which he thought were spurious and had them destroyed. So when he sent his people to Abdullah ibn Masud, who was stationed in Kufa, he refused to hand them over. He did not like them to be handed them over, and he outrightly refused. And this whole debate has been recorded in history in a number of narratives. So Baqillani says that why is it that if this debate could have been recorded in history when he had refused to hand over the mushaf, so why would not this debate that he did not regard two important surahs to be part of the Qur'an be recorded similarly in history, and some debate should have come to the foreground. This is his first point of critique. Now the second point of his critique is that he says that such is the importance of this matter that since Abdullah ibn Masud was differing with other companions, he should have offered a reason for this, that he does not regard these two surahs to be part of the Qur'an. He says that this is very unusual that a person is differing from the rest of the companions and he is not citing or giving any reason. It was imperative that he should have given his reason, whatever he thought the reason would be, but we find that there is no such a reason being reported by him, and this, he says, is very strange. Now the third point that he says is that none of Abdullah ibn Mas'ud's pupils have reported this issue from him, and he cites people like for example, Abida Salmani, Masruq ibn Ajda, Al-Qama ibn Qais, Amr al-Shurahbil, Haris ibn Qais, Al-Asfad ibn Yazid. He says that all these students who are prominent, very prominent authorities in themselves, and they should have actually reported something from Abdullah ibn Masud in this regard. They should have either reported that their teacher has corroborated this or rejected it. Whatever the case may be, in case of a rejection, they should have reported that their teacher does not regard these two surahs to be part of the Qur'an, but this is not the case. So therefore it is something very, very serious in this regard, because students in those times were the transmitters of knowledge of their teachers. And why is it that these students did not corroborate or reject this view of their teacher? And if they themselves did not ask this question to the teacher, or did not pose this question to their teacher, then, and although this is something very impossible, but he still says that if this was the case, that even these students did not ask this question from their teacher as to why he is rejecting these surahs, then at least people around these students should have come forward and asked them that what is the view of their teacher and why is it that he is not regarding them to be part of the Qur'an. And if even this did not happen, he goes on to say, then at least should we believe that the whole ummah in this regard had remained silent and did not come forward to ask what exactly was going on, and should we believe that the whole ummah was standing on one side and not even asking this question from Abdullah ibn Masud. So he says that this is something very improbable. And he also cites that a couple of his very important students had actually regarded the Muawwidhatayn to be part of the Qur'an, and he cites those narratives. Thus, for example, he cites Al-Aswad's narrative from a source, although he is not reported its source, but it is Ibn Abi Shayba's Al-Musannaf. So the words are, Ibrahim says, An Ibrahim qal, Qultu lil Aswad, min al-Quran huma, qal, Naam, yani al-Muawwidhatayn. So Ibrahim asked Al-Aswad, are the Muawwidhatayn part of the Qur'an? And he replied, yes. Another student is Al-Sha'bi, and the words are, this is also reported in the Musannaf of Ibn Abi Shayba, and the words are, An Husayn an Sha'bi qala al-Muawwidhatan min al-Qur'an. But viewers, here I must interject and also give my own comment that perhaps there seems to be an error on the part of Al-Baqillani, because authorities specify that Ash-Sha'bi never heard from Ibn Masud, and therefore he cannot be regarded as a pupil of Ibn Masud. But the case of Al-Aswad is there, as is cited by as Baqillani himself. So the fourth point, we go on to the fourth point which Baqillani makes in this regard. He says that we should now understand the implication of deletion, because we find there are narratives which say that he would delete the Muawwidhatayn from the Masahif. Now he says that the question arises is, what are these Masahif from which he deleted these surahs? They could not have been his own Masahif, because he never regarded them to be part of the Qur'an. So how did these words come in that he would strike them off, whereas they were never part of his own Masahif? They could not have been part of his own Masahif. And therefore he goes on to conclude that other Masahif which would have been copied from his Masahif would also not have this surah. So it is clear that as far as Abdullah ibn Masud and Masahif, which are copied from his mushaf, would not be having this surah, then how come it is said that he would strike them off? Then he makes a supposition. He says that, okay, let's believe that it were the Usmanic Masahif in which these surahs were struck off by him. Now, he says that if this was the case, this could have happened in just two circumstances. Either he did this openly in front of everyone, or in secret. If he did this in open, then this would have caused a great amount of alarm and also annoying. This would have annoyed the rest of the Sahaba, because if he would have been openly striking off two surahs which the other Sahaba were regarding as part of the Qur'an, how would they have tolerated this? They must have engaged in debate, and a lot of things must have ensued, and this never happened. And also he says that this is something which also needs to be understood, that if he had done it secretly, the other case, if he had done it secretly, then this would automatically mean that he is doing something against the consensus of the companions, because the rest of the people or the rest of the Sahaba are regarding something to be part of the Quran, and he is doing it secretly. So he raises this interesting question, that if the whole Ummah is regarding something to be part of the Quran, how can we think that Abu Masud is not regarding them to be the Quran, part of the Quran? So this is the fourth point of critique that he makes. The fifth point views that he raises is that there are many other narratives found in Hadith books which say that the Muawwidhatayn were read by the Prophet in his prayers, and he has also cited that there were narratives in which the occasion of revelation of these surahs have been mentioned. So it is hard to believe that a companion of the stature of Abdullah ibn Masud would not have known that the Prophet had read them in his prayers, or would have regarded to be surahs which were part of the Quran. And he also mentions some of these narratives, and although he has not cited the exact source from which he has taken these narratives, but I have endeavored myself to find out the source, and just let me cite before you a few of these narratives so that you can see how Baqilani says that in the presence of these narratives, it is hard to believe that Ibn Masud would not have known that these two surahs are part of the Quran. Now, the first of these narratives is, although he does not cite it, it is from Muslim, and the words are. It is reported by Uqba ibn Amir. He says that an Uqba ibn Amir قال لي رسول الله أنزل أو أنزلت علي آيات لم يرى مثلهن قط المعوذتين. Uqba ibn Amir stated, the Messenger of God said to me, revealed to me are verses which have no parallel in the past, and they are the Muawwidhatayn. Okay, now another narrative in this regard is also cited, and this is actually, I found it in the Fazail al-Quran of Abu Ubaid al-Qasim ibn Salam, and the words are, عن معاذ بن عبد الله بن خبيب عن أبيه قال كنت مع رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم في طريق مكة ومعه أصحابه فوقعت علينا ذبابة من الليل حتى سترت بعض القوم عن بعض فلما أصبحنا قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم قل يا ابن خبيب فقلت ما أقول يا رسول الله فقال قل أعوذ برب الفلق فقرأها وقرأتها ثم قال قل فقلت ما أقول فقال قل أعوذ برب الناس فقرأها وقرأتها حتى فرغ منها ثم قال ما استعاذ أو استعان أحد بمثل هاتين السورتين قط. Abdullah ibn Khubayb reports from his father, who said, I was once with the Messenger of God on our way to Mecca, and there were other companions with him also. The fog at night time enveloped us, and some of us became invisible to others. In the morning, the Messenger of God said, read, O Ibn Khubayb. I asked, what should I read? He said, Surah Falaq. He read it, and I also read it. He then said, read, O Ibn Khubayb. I said, what should I read? He said, Surah Nas. He read it, and I also read it. He then said, no one can seek refuge or help better than what can be sought from these two surahs. So these are a few examples, viewers, which tell us, he has cited other narratives as well, but I'll content myself in citing just two examples that he has presented in his book, and he has actually made this point that in the presence of these narratives, it cannot be believed that Abdullah ibn Masud would not have known that these two surahs were part of the Qur'an. So this is a summary of the critique which is presented by al-Baqillani. Viewers, let me now move on to another authority in this regard, and he has also presented his criticism on these narratives, and his methodology in criticizing these narratives is that he has actually cited the people who have reported these narratives separately, and then he has gone on to criticize each category. And in this regard, he says that the textual variants of all these narratives can be divided into three categories. And the person that I'm talking to you about is Abdul Latif al-Rahmani. So he is the person who is now whose viewpoint I'm now going to summarize and let you know how he has critically viewed the ascription of this fact that Abdullah ibn Masud would not regard the Muawwidhatayn to be part of the Qur'an. So as I said, he has divided these variants into three broad categories, and all these three categories are actually representations of a person who has reported these narratives. Now, the first person that he takes up is Abdurrahman ibn Yazid al-Nakha'i, and in this regard, he has actually cited three narratives. The first of these narratives is recorded in the tafsir of Ibn Kathir. So the words are من حديث الأعمش عن أبي إسحاق عن عبد الرحمن بن يزيد قال كان عبد الله يحق المعوذتين من مصاحفه ويقول إنهما ليستا من كتاب الله. So Abdurrahman ibn Yazid said that Abdullah ibn Masud would erase the Muawwidhatayn from his Masahif and would say they are not part of the book of God. So the second narrative which Abdul Latif Rahmani cites for Abdurrahman ibn Yazid, this is taken from Al-Qastalani's Irshad al-Sari, and the words are An Abdurrahman ibn Yazid قال كان عبد الله يحق المعوذتين من المصحف ويقول إنما أمر رسول الله أن يتعوذ بهما ولم يكن عبد الله يقرأ بهما ويقول إنهما ليستا من كتاب الله. Abdurrahman ibn Yazid said, Abdullah ibn Masud would erase the Muawwidhatayn from the mushaf and say, the Prophet was directed to seek refuge through them. And Abdullah would not recite them and say, they are not part of the book of God. The third narrative that he cites is found in Umdatul Qari of Al-Aini, and the words in this case are من طريق الأعمش عن أبي إسحاق عن عبد الرحمن بن يزيد النخعي قال كان عبد الله بن مسعود يحق المعوذتين من مصاحفه ويقول إنهما ليستا من القرآن أو من كتاب الله. Abdurrahman ibn Yazid said that Abdullah ibn Masud would erase the Muawwidhatayn from his Masahif and say they are not part of the Qur'an or the book of God. So these are the three narratives that Abdul Latif Rahmani cites, and then he criticizes these narratives and he says that in his own view there are a number of points which arise on this narrative. Firstly, he says that Abdurrahman ibn Yazid is the only person who has reported these words in his narratives which say innahuma laysata min kitabillah, they are not part of the book of God. He says that in the rest of the narratives which have been reported by his other people, these words are not found. It is only in the narratives of Abdurrahman ibn Yazid al-Nakha'i that these words are found, which of course casts doubt on the whole scenario. He says that the person who narrates from Abdurrahman ibn Yazid is Abu Ishaq al-Sabi'i, and Abu Ishaq al-Sabi'i, it is known from Mizan al-I'tidal that he is not a trustworthy person from what he reports from the Kufans, and we know that this narrative is from the Kufans. So this is the second point that he raises, that Abdurrahman ibn Yazid, from him the person who reports is Abu Ishaq, and Abu Ishaq, about him, Az-Zahabi has said in his Mizan al-I'tidal that he is not trustworthy in what he narrates from the Kufans, and we know that Abdurrahman ibn Yazid was himself a Kufi. So therefore, this is the second point of his critique. The third point that he makes in this regard is that Al-Amash reports from Abu Ishaq. So we have Abdurrahman ibn Yazid reporting this narrative. From him, Abu Ishaq al-Sabi'i is reporting, and from Abu Ishaq, Al-Amash is reporting. And about Al-Amash, according to Az-Zahabi, as again in his Mizan al-I'tidal, it is known that he is a mudallis and does tadlis from weak narrators, and that there are a lot of discrepancies, iztirab as the words go, in his narrative. So therefore he says that this again is something which needs to, which raises a serious question. The fourth point that he makes is that Al-Amash is also a Shiite, and in accordance with the famous principle of the Sunnis, as per which if a person records something which he believes to be true, then in that particular area, his witness shall not be accepted. And since, according to Rahmani, this particular narrative tells us that something has been taken away from the mushaf, and which according to him goes in favor of the Shiite belief that the Quran has been tampered with. So therefore, in accordance with the principle of hadith, this narrative shall not be accepted. Now he makes a fifth point in this regard, and he says that if narratives from either Abu Ishaq or Al-Amash are not trustworthy from the Kufans, then narratives in which both these personalities are present shall be doubly suspicious, because both these personalities are present, and this of course casts a doubt on the narratives themselves. Now the sixth point that he makes in this regard is that Abdullah ibn Masud taught a number of students, and we know that in the times of the Caliph Umar, he says that he was stationed in Kufa and he taught so many students, and it is strange that none of his students have reported that their teacher did not regard the Muawwidhatayn to be part of the Qur'an. Now, the seventh point that he makes is that had Abdullah really regarded these surahs to be extraneous to the book of God, he would have been condemned by his contemporaries. And you can see that these are some of the points which are in common to Al-Baqillani and to Abdul Latif Rahmani, but nonetheless they need to be ascribed to their original authority so that we know how people in the past have viewed these narratives. So the seventh point that he makes is that basically, had this been the case, that he had regarded these two surahs to be extraneous to the Quran, then this would have been reported in history, and this would have been a source of condemnation for him, but we do not find any such condemnation being recorded in history. The eighth point view that he makes is that there is a narrative which says that Abdullah ibn Masud himself regarded the Muawwidhatayn to be part of the Quran, and then he cites this narrative. So this narrative is found in the hadith books, and I am citing it from Suyuti's Al-Durr al-Mansur, and it says, "An Ibn Masud and Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam قال لقد أنزل علي آيات لم ينزل علي مثلهن المعوذتين." So Ibn Masud reports from the Prophet, "Indeed, some verses have been revealed to me which have no parallel among other revealed verses, and they are the Muawwidhatayn." So he says that on the authority of this narrative, it can be clearly seen that since Ibn Masud is the narrator of this narrative, so he would not have gone against what he is reporting. Now, he also goes on to make another point in this regard, and he says that, and this is something which already Baqillani has actually raised, that the Prophet had must have recited these surahs in his prayers, and he has also cited that there are many narratives in the canonical books of hadith and other places which regard these surahs to be part of the Quran as they were recited as Quran. And it is strange that in the presence of these narratives, Abdullah ibn Masud would have gone on to negate that these two surahs are part of the Quran. So this basically is a summary, viewers, of the critique which Rahmani presents as far as Abdul Rahman ibn Yazid al-Nakhai's narratives are concerned. So as I had said earlier, he has actually divided his critique into three separate categories, each category being represented by a person who reports this narrative. So I've just covered the first of these categories. The second one, viewers, is from Alqama ibn Qais. Now, in the case of Alqama ibn Qais, Abdul Latif Rahmani again cites two important narratives. So let me first cite these narratives, and then I shall present his critique vis-a-vis these narratives. So the words are, and this is found again in the tafsir of Ibn Kasir according to Rahmani. So he quotes these narratives from him, and he says, "عن إبراهيم عن علقمة قال كان عبد الله يحك المعوذتين من المصاحف ويقول إنما أمر رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم أن يتعوذ بهما ولم يكن عبد الله يقرأ بهما." So Alqama said, Abdullah ibn Masud would erase the Muawwidhatayn from the mushaf and say, "The Prophet has directed us to seek refuge through them," and Abdullah would not recite them. The second narrative that he cites is from Suyuti's Ad-Durr al-Mansur, and the words are An ibn Masud an Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam su'ila an hatayn suratayn faqal qila li qultu faqulu kama qult. So this says that the Prophet has asked Ibn Masud, the narrative of Ibn Masud, that the Prophet has asked about these two surahs. He was asked about these two surahs, he was inquired about, and he replied, I have been told and I read. Thus you also read the way I read. This is how the second narrative is recorded. Now, as far as the critique on these narratives is concerned, which forms a group, because Alqama ibn Qais is the person who reports these narratives from Abdullah ibn Masud. So, according to Rahmani, there are three narratives in the chain of narration of these narratives. He points out three narratives. The first of them is Al-Azraq ibn Ali ibn Muslim. Now, he says that though he is a trustworthy narrator, he's siqa, he narrates gharaib, and the words are yughribu. That is why there is no narrative from him in the 6 canonical books of hadith. So this is his first critique. The second critique is that the second narrator is Hassan ibn Ibrahim al-Kirmani. Though he too is generally regarded to be trustworthy, he is not so in the eyes of Nasai, who says that he is laysa bil qawi. According to Ibn Adi, he falters in the narration of hadith and reports narratives which are not reported by any other person. So this is the critique which he has cited regarding Hassan ibn Ibrahim. And the third person which is also found in the chain of narration of these narratives is As-Salt ibn Bihram. Now he says that he is trustworthy, however he is from among the Murji'ites, and Abu Hatim says that there is no defect in him except that he is a Murji'ite. So moreover, he says that there is no narrative from him, As-Salt ibn Bihram, in the 6th canonical books. So Rahmani says that if in a narrative any of these three narratives exist, then such a narrative will have to be regarded as mu'allal, which means that it possesses a hidden defect. Narratives in which all these three exist become debatable, especially when such a narrative is against trustworthy narratives and is against consensus of the ummah as well. So this is his points of critique. They are basically regarding the chain of narration of the narratives which have been reported by Alqama ibn Qais. Now let me move on to the third and final category in this regard, and these are narratives which have been cited by or reported by Zir ibn Hubaysh, who is also a student of Abdullah ibn Masud. So the first of these narratives, now viewers, in this regard he has cited actually 4 narratives. So the first of these narratives is also, he is cited from the tafsir of Ibn Kasir. So the words are عن عاصم عن زر قال سألت ابن مسعود عن المعوذتين فقال سألت النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم عنهما فقال قيل لي قل فقلت لكم فقولوا قال أبي فقال لنا النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم فنحن نقول. So in this I must also confess that the letter kul, which occurs, as you can see in your screens, that the word kul, although has been cited by him, is occurring in the tafsir of Ibn Kasir, but in the extant versions I could not find this letter, but I've still relied on Rahmani and cited it. So the translation would be, Zir said, I asked Ibn Masud about the Muawwidhatayn. He said, I had asked the Prophet about them. He said to me, I was told, read, and this read or this kul is actually not found in today's extant versions. So read, thus I read to you, so you also read similarly. Ubay said, so the Prophet read to us, thus we also now read. The second narrative which he cites is from Al-Bukhari and from his Al-Jami al-Sahih. And the words are, Anzir ibn Hubaysh, Anzir قال سألت أبي ibn Ka'b قلت يا أبا المنذر إن أخاك ابن مسعود يقول كذا وكذا فقال أبي سألت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم فقال لي قيل لي فقلت قال فنحن نقول كما قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. So Zayd ibn Hubaysh said, I asked Ubay, O Abu Munzir, your brother Ibn Masud says such and such a thing. He said, I asked the Prophet. He replied, I was told and I read. Thus we read in the very manner the Prophet read. The third narrative, which is reported by Zayd ibn Hubaysh, is from the Musnad of Al-Humaydi, and the words are زر بن حبيش يقول سألت أبي بن كعب عن المعوذتين فقلت يا أبا المنذر إن أخاك ابن مسعود يحكهما من المصحف فقال إني سألت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم فقال قيل لي كل فقلت فنحن نقول كما قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. Zayd ibn Hubaysh said, I asked Ubay about the Muawwidhatayn, saying, O Abu Munzir, your brother Ibn Masud erases them from the mushaf. He said, I asked the Prophet. He replied, I was told, read. So I read. Thus we read in the very manner the Prophet read. And the fourth and final narrative in this regard, viewers, is recorded in the Tafsir of Ibn Kathir again. And the words are, An Zayd ibn Hubaysh قال قلت لأبي بن كعب إن ابن مسعود كان لا يكتب المعوذتين في مصحفه فقال أشهد أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم أخبرني أن جبريل قال له قل أعوذ برب الفلق فقلتها قال قل أعوذ برب الناس فقلتها فنحن نقول ما قال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم. So Zayd ibn Hubaysh said, I told Ubay that Ibn Masud would not write the Muawwidhatayn in his mushaf. Ubay said, I bear witness that the Prophet told me that Gabriel said to him, Qul a'udhu bi rabbil falaq. The Prophet said, I said these words. Gabriel then said, Qul a'udhu bi rabbin nas. The Prophet said, I said these words. Thus we read what the Prophet read. So these are the four narratives which Abdul Latif Rahmani cites vis-a-vis Zayd ibn Hubaysh, and then he says that these narratives are not trustworthy because there are discrepancies in the way these narratives have been reported. Now he says the first of them says that Zayd asked Ibn Masud about the Muawwidhatayn, who said that he inquired about them from the Prophet. The Prophet had replied that he had been directed to read them, so he read them, and so people should also read them. Zayd then asked Ubay about the Muawwidhatayn, who gave exactly the same answer. Now this is one type of narratives, the first one. He says in the second of them record that Zayd had mentioned a statement of Ibn Masud before Ubay without specifying what was said. He did not say, the words are kaza wa kaza. Apparently it does seem that the statement would have been the same as recorded in the first narrative. So it's very logical to assume what the first narrative had said, the second is actually citing them, but in a vague manner by saying kaza wa kaza. He says that this is further corroborated by what is mentioned in At-Tabarani, cited earlier, that and if this statement of Zayd is regarded as correct, then it can be concluded that Ibn Masud never rejected the Muawwidhatayn to be part of the Qur'an. Because actually, as we have seen from that narrative, he had himself reported these to be part of the Qur'an. Now he says that in the third narrative, Zayd has reported the practice of Ibn Masud and not his statement. So in the third narrative, if you recall, viewers, the words are that he had actually cited the practice of Ibn Masud and not his own words, which is in contrast with the above narratives. So he says that this is something which is in contrast with the other narratives. The words are, O Abu Munzir, your brother Ibn Masud erases them from the mushaf. So he cites his practice and not his own words. And in the fourth narrative, the words of Zayd are, I told Ubay that Ibn Masud would not write the Muawwidhatayn in his mushaf. So he says that the word erases in the previous narrative have been replaced by not write. So he says that this is a kind of a discrepancy. So Rahmani concludes on regarding these narratives from Zayd ibn Hubaysh that in the wake of these discrepancies, it is difficult to surmise that Ibn Masud had rejected the Muawwidhatayn to be part of the Qur'an. He goes on to say that if the first of Zayd's narrative is concerned, if you recall, you can just rewind and see the first of the narratives, then it in fact proves otherwise. It in fact proves that Ibn Masud regarded the Muawwidhatayn to be part of the Qur'an. And this narrative is corroborated by the second one recorded by Al-Bukhari as well as by At-Tabarani. So if you recall that in the first narrative, the words are so explicit. The words are, Zayd said, I asked Ibn Masud about the Muawwidhatayn. He said, I asked the Prophet about them. He said to me, I was told, read. And then, of course, the rest of the narrative. So he says that in the presence of these words, how can we see and how can we conclude that Abdullah ibn Masud, in fact, did not regard the Muawwidhatayn to be part of the Qur'an? Finally, he says that if we sum up these categories, we can say that first of all, there are discrepancies and contradiction in the variants, and in the presence of these discrepancies, we cannot accept these narratives. Then he says that the narratives are also suspect, and then finally he says that even if the above two flaws are not regarded, then these narratives are against the consensus in tawatur of the ummah, and hence they should not be accepted. And he says that precisely for these reasons, there are some past authorities which say that these narratives are wrongly ascribed to Abdullah ibn Masud. And then he cites those authorities. I'm going to cite a few of them just to make his point stronger. He says that, thus, for example, Ibn Hazm, he says that وَكُلُّ مَا رُوِيَ عَنْ ابن مسعود من أن المعوذتين وأم القرآن لم تكن في مصحفه فكذب موضوع لا يصح وإنما صحت عنه قراءة عاصم عن زر بن حبيش عن ابن مسعود وفيهما أم القرآن والمعوذتان. So this is what Ibn Hazm has said in his Al-Muhalla bil-Athar. And all that is narrated from Ibn Masud that the Muawwidhatayn in Surah Fatiha were not in the mushaf is false and concocted. The words are fakizbun, mawzu'un. Because the chain of narration of the reading of Asim from Ibn Masud through Zir ibn Hubaysh, there is both Surah Fatiha and Muawwidhatayn. And then, viewers, he goes on to cite Imam Nawawi. He says, أجمع المسلمون على أن المعوذتين والفاتحة من القرآن وأن من جهد منها شيء كفر وما نقل عن ابن مسعود باطل. There is a consensus among the Muslims that the Muawwidhatayn and Surah Fatiha are surahs of the Qur'an. A person who rejects this has committed an act of disbelief. The narratives attributed to Ibn Masud in this regard are false. The words are batil. And finally, viewers, let me cite Razi, which obviously has been quoted by Abdul Latif Rahmani. He says, وَالْأَغْلَبْ عَلَى الظَّنِّ أَنَّ نَقْلَ هَذَا الْمَذْهَبِ عَنْ ابن مسعود نَقْلٌ كَاذِبٌ باطل. This has been cited by Razi in his tafsir, and it says that it is more probable that what has been narrated from Ibn Masud about the Muawwidhatayn has been wrongly and baselessly attributed to him. So viewers, this is a summary which I have presented today before you regarding the critiques of Abu Bakr ibn Tayyib al-Baqilani, which he has cited in his Al-Intisar, and by Abdul Latif Rahmani, which he has cited in his Tarikh al-Qur'an. And I wish that I present this summary of their critiques before you, so that I will in the next session build up and represent my own view on these critiques, as well as my own input on how these narratives of rejection of the Muawwidhatayn as ascribed to Abdullah ibn Masud should be viewed. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين والمسلمات.